I was reading media accounts, mainstream media accounts about what was going on in Davos, and it seemed to be that the pitch from the WEF is that increased globalization would solve all the problems plaguing the world today. And by that, I mean the climate crisis, inflation, high energy prices, broken supply chains, etc. Are you buying that?
Definitely not, David. Absolutely not. The idea that a select group of people with their own vision can implement a plan towards everyday people like me and yourself, and they think they hold all the cards to the public on what they believe is beneficial for us, that's wrong. Now, if you would have asked me if this was happening 2, maybe 3 years ago, I would have written it off. And I think a lot of people have been writing off this idea of a group of powerful people getting together and wanting to rearrange the world. Yeah, I mean, it's now so clear as day and so open for anyone to access and look at. It's gotten to the point where you cannot refute it. And this idea of, you know, lots of things between implementing chips into people's heads, you know, from that to, of course, tracking your carbon footprint and then potentially stopping you from going over that limit through spending or through various things, or adding so much technology to society where it almost becomes like some sort of science fiction novel. It gets to the point where, yeah, people should be worried. People should be waking up to this and go, do you know what? There's something to say here. There's a lot of questions that need answering. So I kind of guess that was the main purpose of going on this big trip.
And tell me, Lewis, when I was observing the mainstream media coverage of what was going on in Davos, at best, it was apologetic of the World Economic Forum. At worst, the mainstream media journalists were acting like cheerleaders. It was almost like a patronizing tone. Listen, people, these are the important folks in the world. Listen to what they have to say. The world will be a better place. I don't know if you were monitoring what the mainstream media was reporting, Lewis, but do I have it right in my assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Avi bumped into a New York Times senior editor, and they had, a lot to say. I say she didn't have a lot to say, but we'd had a lot of questions, put it that way. The problem is with the mainstream media in this event is that they were accredited, they were invited. So how can it be fair for these reporters to be invited to a very significant summit with the most powerful people in the world? Do we trust someone or a reporter or a journalist or an organization that was invited, handpicked by this particular organization to write a fair report? I don't think so. So I think the fairest people that would come to these sort of events and cover them would be people that weren't invited. Someone like us, maybe, not to toot our own horn, but I think people that aren't invited to these events, that want to cover them and that aren't accredited, have more to say than these reporters or mainstream journalists that, just jump in.
I would also say, Lewis, that, and you guys did report on this, if memory serves, it was almost a conflict of interest because there were media organizations that were sponsors of the World Economic Forum. So we know exactly where they are weighing in when it comes to the WEF. But, you know, the other prevalent theme in your reports, which I did not see in mainstream media coverage, Lewis, is the outrageous hypocrisy, the double standards. It's almost as though the WEF was preaching, look, give up your car, eat bugs instead of steak, you know, and everything will get so much better. And yet these cats are living high on the hog. They're jet setting in private jets all over the globe. They're staying in 5-star resorts. I mean, Lewis, it's a little rich, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I agree. Completely agree. I mean, even going to that private airport was, damning enough. Going to a private airport and having the air traffic controllers giving us the report on all the planes that flew in for even that day was it's pretty eye-opening. And you think to yourself, and the funny thing about that as well, to add, was is they said, well, unfortunately they couldn't get their private helicopter transport over after they've just flew in private jet. They had to actually take a car. So that's kind of like the, oh yeah, pity for them, isn't it? Complete pity for them.
Hey folks, that was an excerpt from my show, Rebel Roundup. Now, to get the full meal deal, why not go to Rebel News Plus, sign up, and never miss a Rebel News Plus show in the future.